My name is Bryce, and I'm your host for The Inbound Secret, where we're talking with top performers and health experts and sales badasses alike about their strategies to optimize their well-being and performance. Once again, this is The Inbound Secret, and let's get rocking and rolling.
This is The Inbound. This is The Inbound. This is The Inbound. This is The Inbound Secret.
Welcome back to The Inbound Secret, guys. Once again, it is Bryce Vance, your host. Welcome back. We've got a very special surprise for you today. I think you're in California now, but you're originally from England, if I remember correctly, right?
You worked that out just from the accent, didn't you?
Just a little bit. Everybody, I've got Steve Sims with us, author of Bluefishing, CEO and founder of Bluefish, which I don't know a ton about, but I've done a little research. From what I can gather, I'm going to let you talk about it because it's like your baby. You're the one that's good at it. But from what I can gather, guys, Steve's the man that the elite, the VPs, if any of you listening that are business owners, maybe you're in Hollywood, maybe you just want to spend a lot of money and have an unforgettable memory. Steve's the dude that you contact when you need shit done and money's not an issue. Is that correct?
Yeah. Basically, you've just said it.
Perfect.
So we had Forbes. Forbes, funnily enough, called me two things. They called me the real life Wizard of Oz, and they said that what I did was basically the Make-A-Wish Foundation for people with really large checkbooks. So take your pick. I like both of those.
I like them both. So without further ado, Steve, let everybody know who you are, kind of what you're about. Thank you for being on the show. First of all, I know everybody's excited to listen to you.
Well, I appreciate it. So, God, where do we start? Like all entrepreneurs, I knew more where I didn't fit than where I did fit. And I knew that I was in a bar full of broke-ass bikers in East London because that's what I was, a broke-ass biker. And so, before I learned the statement of, you are the five people you hang around with, I used to have one that I called, you are the room you're in. So I thought to myself, I need to change the room I'm in. So I tried to get a load of different jobs, failed at them all, ended up becoming the doorman of a nightclub. And fast forward 25 years, I founded the world's leading experiential concierge firm. Now, you mentioned about, look, if you want something fantastical, I'm the guy that sent more people down to the Titanic than anyone else. Now, bear in mind, more people have been in space than have been down to the Titanic, and I'm responsible for about 60% of those. I've had people play on stage with their favorite rock band. I've had drum lessons by Guns N' Roses. I got a couple married in the Vatican by the Pope. I closed down a museum in Florence and had a dinner party for 6 at the feet of Michelangelo's David. And halfway through that pasta, I had Andrea Bocelli come in and serenade him. So I'm the guy that basically takes the little bit of what you want and desire and gives you what you lust for. I'm the one that has no limits. And as long as you can afford me, I make it happen. And there's a couple of things you've got to be aware of. At my peak, now bearing in mind, I started to wrap the company up about 2 years ago, and we'll go into why. At my peak, I had 93 clients, which is not a lot of clients.
No.
No, it's not. But when you consider that over 70% of those were billionaires, you're more than happy. So I went for quality rather than quantity. I realized strangely, though, while I was doing this concierge stuff, the only reason I was doing it, because to be honest with you, it wasn't very exciting to me, because half the stuff I was doing was, it was cool. It was interesting, but I didn't really care. What I was really attracted to was I'm dealing with a billionaire. How does he live? How does he think? Yeah. What does he do differently? So I was using my concierge world as a Trojan horse to get into the room with billionaires. If the billionaire wanted something, hey, I would be the person to call. But the only reason I was doing it was because I wanted to be in that room. And so I got to have sit down chats with Richard Branson, Elon Musk, Andrea Bocelli, Jean-Paul Dujardin, the richest, most powerful people in the world that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
Royalty from all over the planet, people that own things like countries, were my clients. And I realized a lot about them in branding, marketing, positioning. So 2.5 years ago, released a book called Bluefishing. Didn't think it'd be anything, but I thought I need to get my word out.
Yeah.
And it exploded. So now I do coaching, I do classes, I've got free Facebook pages. And now my goal and my role in life is to get people to do things differently. As I always say, go for stupid, go for the ridiculous. And that's what I do now. I train people how to kind of like be able to achieve the impossible in a world sadly saturated by fakes and flake gurus who boast about wealth and influence of which they have neither.
Yeah, the rented Lamborghini, the Airbnb. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you this will make you laugh. So I don't have a car, and I live in Los Angeles, and I live in Los Angeles.
I mean, to be fair, in LA, a car is not a lot of use. It takes like 3 hours to go to the corner store.
Oh, damn right. Yeah, to get it out of your driveway. But I ride motorcycles everywhere because I can actually get somewhere. And I was down in Beverly. This is maybe 1.5 years ago now. I was in Beverly Hills in the car park just getting onto my motorbike. And in the corner of this garage, about 3rd floor down, was this Lamborghini and these 2 dudes leaning against it and a guy with a camera. And these 2 dudes, I stood there going, you want this car, you want to be, and they're hitting it hard with a motivational video. I could hear this. And I'm watching them and I'm just smiling, smirking, because I'm thinking how cheesy that is. And I've always regretted not videoing the next few minutes because it took a turn that has constantly made me basically pee my pants. As they are telling you about how they can help you get the wealth you need, I suddenly hear this massive Armenian guy screaming and
please
running across the
his car,
telling them, get the fuck off my car. I'm going to nail you. These guys went out the door like lightning. Me, I couldn't get on my bike for 10 minutes because I'm crying watching this Armenian chasing these 2 kids up the stairwell. It was hysterical.
Oh, that's fantastic. There's so the gentleman, my partner that connected us, Trey, I know you've been on his show before too, but we talk about this all the time because we've more or less stumbled into the coaching space, right? He's a systems guy. I do omnipresent ecosystems, marketing, app development. And just by happenstance, people were like, well, can you coach us? Can you consult with us? Can you train us? So we kind of just fell into it. So both of us have coaching programs. We're developing a syndicate. But while we were doing that, both of us were like, all right, how do we not become those shitbags that we hate? Because I swear to God, if we're going to put up a Lambo video, I'm going to do it the right way. And it's funny that you bring this up because a really good friend of mine here in the town I live in a small town outside of Boise, Idaho called Nampa. And a good friend of mine, I've known their family for 20 years. They own a few car lots around the area. So they've got they've got a Bugatti, they've got an NSX, they've got 2 Lambos, they've got these exotics that they have in their lots that they drive around to show off the lots. So me and Trey one day were like, what if we went in there and did the cliche fake guru video, but rather than claiming they're ours, just start the video with like me surrounded by them or him surrounded by them and just going like, these ain't my fucking cars, but it got your attention, didn't it?
Yeah, I've seen that. I've done one similar before. But yeah, you're right. There's too many people. I've always had the philosophy that if you are committed to spending money because the guy's got a fancy car in the background, then you've got more problems than you realize, you know? Yeah. And so you should spend that money on a therapist before throwing it in someone else's course.
Or a couple, maybe a couple.
Yeah, I agree with you there. But it's the world we're in. Do you know, the funny thing is, and maybe this is a good thing, COVID Nobody. I've heard from nobody this year that have talked about how they can't wait to get out of COVID and show off a new car or get a selfie on a jet they don't own or take a picture with a celebrity that doesn't even know their name. No
It's
one
because
cares.
they all went broke. Everybody that was flexing with other people's shit went broke.
I hope so. I really hope so, because we need it cleared out. Sadly, those kind of little rats and roaches, they will come back into the ecosystem, and they'll tell you how they can make $1 million by the time you brush your teeth and all that bullshit. But that ain't going to be me. And all I care about, it's not me.
As they're driving a 1989 Honda Civic with one donut. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it.
Oh, God. So before we kind of segue into like your background, what brought you from London, how you went from, what were you, a bricklayer, I think is what your bio said?
Yeah,
to,
I was a bricklayer, yeah.
To like the elite black book, basically. And that transition, you mentioned you ride. What do you ride?
I've got a bit spoiled now. I've got 12. So I've got some old British stuff. I'm jazzing up some Harleys at the moment. I race Ducatis. I ride Nortons and Triumphs. So I'm very fortunate. I am really fantastic at buying motorcycles and shit at selling them. So, you know, I end up with a collection.
That I've got a problem. Anything that has an engine or shoots a bullet, I'm down with. So I've got I've got like 12 guns, like 4 of them are in that room. I've got now 3 bikes, 3 cars, and less than 0 parking. There's nowhere to put anything at all. But so I just recently picked up, so I've been riding around on a 1987 Super Magna 700.
All right. That's the Honda, isn't it?
Yeah, that I picked up. Sweet little thing. I've never gotten it into 6th gear. I don't even know why it has a 6th gear. At like 120, I'm at like 2K on the tack, just in 5th. I don't know what 6th is for. But a friend of mine called and she didn't know what to do with it. She traded a old kit car that she had got from her grandfather, I believe, for this R1100S. And I was like, well, I don't need it, but yeah, I'll take it. So, so now that's the new, I just winterized it, but that's the new ride. So I get it, man. I get it. Here we've got all 4 seasons though. So I've got a truck.
No, we have one. We go from hoodie to cap to hoodie. Those are our 3 seasons. And that's now I'm chilly today. And I've got a thin hoodie on, and that'll do me for the rest of winter.
I've got to ask, what's the temperature there that you're chilly?
Oh God, like 52. I think I've been here for too long. I was in England getting rained on and pissed on a regular basis, and I've just got real soft here in LA.
I think you've been there too long. Right now,
I have.
This is our high, okay, in Idaho. This is the hottest it's going to get today, 39 degrees.
Yeah, no, that's the kind of weather where I'm actually considering my zip code over a hoodie. I'm considering I need to be out of there. So yeah,
you're not a fan of living somewhere where the wind hurts your face sometimes.
I find it novel if it's literally just I'm there for a couple of days and then I can get the hell out of it. But no, I want to make sure that my bike can be ridden every day of the year.
Yeah, that's the one downside. For like 4 months of the year, they're winterized. They're just tarped up in the garage. So let's get back on track, because I'll talk bikes and guns all fucking day long. outside of who you are, right? Clearly, you're just a person to make things happen, and we're going to talk about that because I want you to give your insight to all of our listeners and viewers. Because quite honestly, there's a lot of them that have plateaued, gotten stuck. Hell, I've been there. I get there every now and then just because I want to do too much shit and then I don't know which one of the things I'm going to do. But there's a lot of people that have either started a company, lost their job, trying to scale a company, and they just got stuck. They just got plateaued. And they don't really know how to get past that to keep making shit happen, right? So we'll talk about that in a second. But before we get there, tell us about how you went from a bricklayer to the black book of basically anybody who's anybody.
So I said to you that I was a broke-ass biker. And you know, I knew what being poor was like. I had no money. I was riding around on a shitty bike that started whenever. And like all entrepreneurs, we create from aggravation. We know what pisses us off more than what makes us smile a lot of the time. But as a youngster, I was like, hang on, is this my life? Is this what I'm supposed to do for the rest of the fucking life? You know, I didn't want it. I didn't know what I did want to do, but I sure as shit knew it wasn't what I was doing. So I went out on a journey to try and get a job that would keep me clean, keep me dry, because I was on the building site getting mained on in East London, you know, and Friday night, hey, Friday night's for having a fight in a pub. That's what Friday nights were for. I didn't want that life. And so I tried becoming an insurance salesman. I tried to become a rep. I tried to become a stockbroker. I tried a lorry driver. You know, I tried so many different things and failed at all of them. Or should we restate? Got educated on what I was not a good fit for. During my slump, I ended up being a doorman of a nightclub. And by now, I had got so rattled with trying to get away from where I was now in Hong Kong. I literally had decided maybe it's where I am that's the problem. So I left the country and I flew to Hong Kong. I got a cheap-ass flight, got to Hong Kong, got a job, lasted one day, was fired. And I'm like, shit. And I'm outside a bar just having a few drinks thinking, my life's pretty shit. I'm going to have a few drinks, see if someone wants to, you know, say something to me and I'll get in a fight. You know, that was literally how low I was, you know? And I got the Mama San that owned this nightclub of this bar that I was at. She asked me, and this was the thing that was funny. She came up to me and she said, your guys are inside. You get them out or I get them out and they will be hurt. Now, excuse the bad accent, but I'm on my own. So I'm thinking, who the fuck am I, guys? You know? So this confused me because I was wondering who she thought were my peeps. And I went into this bar and there were four big lads with goatees and looking a bit rough around here. She thought they were my boys just because I looked like them, you know? So I just went up to her and I wasn't going to do anything. And I'm stood there and she went, you get them out and I pay for your drinks. And I thought to myself, that's a deal I can live with, you know? So I went over to the guys, sat down, said to them, look, boys, I've been asked to come and ask you to leave. Now, I don't care if you do or don't, but if you walk out the front door and come back tomorrow, I'll buy your first beer. I didn't even know I was going to be there the following day. I didn't care. But I said, but if you don't take that option, a bunch of guys are going to come running around that curtain with sticks and you're not going to see Tuesday. All right? I'm hoping you make the smart decision here, boys, and I'll see you on your way out. I walked out the door, sat down. My whiskey was still there, carried on drinking. A few minutes later, they walked out and they're like, cheers, man. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm like, you're welcome. No. And she came over to me and she said, hey, will you be the doorman? And I thought, well, I don't have a job. Yeah, all right. So I took the door. Worst thing is, the following day, they came back and they went, hey, how you doing? You're getting us the free beer, aren't you? And I turned around to her and I went, oh, I promised. She said, you promised, so you pay. So my first night, I had to buy these three jokers a beer. But what actually happened from there was I started to see people at my lowest point. What I thought my lowest point was some dodgy little strip club in Wan Chai, Hong Kong, dealing with a bunch of drunks. I started to notice people. Now, I started to notice the people that were going out for a stag night, the people that were going out to celebrate. I started to notice how people moved, you know? And I was pretty good on the door. I was actually exceptional at avoiding a fight. I could talk the person down really quick. I'd literally just come up to you and go, look, I've been asked to come over here and, you know, dance with you, you know, slap you around a bit. I don't want to do that. You don't want me to do that. So can we agree that that's not going to happen and you're just going to leave? And when you put it like that, most people, as long as they weren't too tanked up, would be like, yeah, all right, mate. And then you'd go, oh, thank. And they think they're doing you a favor. Yeah. But you just say, yeah, but who cares? You know? And it would calm it down. So I ended up getting to become a doorman at some pretty good clubs. Now I'm seeing people spending a couple of grand on their bar tab and thinking, I haven't even got that in my bank account, and you're
Mhm.
spending it on some cheap ass's drinks for the night because she's flirting with you, you know? And so I suddenly started to notice people. I started shutting the bars down and doing after hours. Then I was renting clubs. Then I was renting yachts, and I would only invite rich people. Now I started doing that for two reasons. One, I knew what poor people were like. I knew what it was like to go into a bar with enough money for two beers and try and drag that out for an entire night. I didn't want to be dealing with those people. So I thought I'm only going to invite rich people. And that's what I did. Anyone that was poor, anyone that was marginally rich, didn't get to come. But if you were in the society pages, you got an invite to my party. If you were, I saw you in a fancy car, I'd go, hey, you going to the Friday night party? And they'd be like, what party's that? Make a phone call to this. They'll tell you where the party is. And I would just do that. I was doing all of this marketing to get just rich people in a room. And while I was building these, so I became this club promoter and this party promoter. But what I was really doing was I was watching people. How do rich people interact with each other? And that's what I was watching. And then people were saying to me, hey, I want to go to Monaco and hang out with the Ferrari race team. Can you make it happen? Or, no, they would say, do you know anyone that can do it? And I'd be like, yeah, it's me. That'll cost you 50 grand though. And I would just throw it off the top of my head. And they'd be like, sure, great, make it happen. There'd be two of us. And I'd be like, shit. I realized very early on that rich people, they didn't pay you to do things. They paid you so that they didn't have to have the effort to try and get it themselves, or worse, get turned down. You see, the more powerful you become, I had a guy that I sent to Sir Elton John's Oscar party with me. He came with me about 3 years ago. Okay. Lovely guy, short fella, maybe 5'2". Okay. Really, really nice guy, really quiet. Not what you've got in your head as a rich Russian guy. Just like a little fella, he was in his early 40s, had a lovely wife, lovely family, nothing wild about the guy at all. One of the largest owners of shopping malls in Russia.
Damn.
Okay? Owned about you think about your local Westfield shopping mall. That's got like about 300 stores in it. And he had about 600 of those malls times that by 3. This guy, I would have said clearly, and I knew a lot of the people in there. Bear in mind, Elton John was in the room. Yeah. Okay, it was his party. And I knew the guy that I was with could pay for anyone in that room 30 times over and not notice it. No, but he couldn't get into anywhere. Why? Because he wasn't a face. He wasn't a society. He had the money. So I started going after incredibly wealthy people that were not famous. And I noticed that famous people have money. The managers, the agents, the investors, the backers, they have way more money. So I went for them. And along the way, I never had a phone number. I never had an email on my website. I just got into really good circles, and people were coming up to me going, hey, can you get me backstage with Guns N' Roses? Can you get me in a Ferrari Formula One car in Bologna? Can you get me this? Can you do it? And I ended up doing all this. And the more I did, they would go into the party and go, oh, yeah, I was with Andrea Bocelli. Steve Sims did that. And I realized that they became my front line. So I learned how to market. I learned how to brand. I learned how to focus on solving, not selling. And along the way, I ended up working with some of the richest brands like Cartier, Tiffany, Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, Ferrari, New York Fashion Week, Grammys, Kentucky Derby. So it was a snowball. The richer my clients got, the better events I got them into, and the events ended up hiring me to market their events to that caliber, because there's way too many people that play rich that are not. And I've always said, well, actually, I haven't said it. A client of mine said, there's never been anyone that owned a jet that took a selfie of themselves on it.
No.
And that's what's always made me laugh. It's always the prick that's on someone else's jet going, yeah, look at me. I'm on a private. Yeah, I'm so cool. I can't afford anything, but hey, I'm cool. It's always those people. So they always make me laugh.
Well, it's just like that. Who was it? It was Dre. One of his old things was, it took me a long time to realize that being loud showed how poor I was, because his first check when he came out, he was blinged out, like Gucci shoes, Versace belt, like $500,000 wardrobe, but he only had $100,000 in the bank. Yeah. And now he's got several billion, I think, because of the Beats by Dre deal that he had with Monster Cable and then Apple. And he's wearing like $7 worth of clothes that he probably just picked up off of the bedside table that he left there the night before, because he doesn't need to prove anything to anybody, right?
I lived in Palm Beach. So I started off, I left London, I moved to Hong Kong, moved to Bangkok, moved to Geneva, then Palm Beach, and then over to here in LA, all doing these big, amazing events. When I was in Palm Beach, I was doing a lot of the society parties. And this guy turned up, and I won't mention his name because he is well known. He's a financier, and the family name is very famous. Hugely wealthy, billions of dollars. Standing joke that if you can count your money, you're not rich. Okay, so that's a standing up, because interest is always adding to it. And as we came out of the party, he had pulled up and he had valeted his car, and he was going home because he lived in New York, but he had a house in Palm Beach. Mm-hmm. And the car that pulled up was this blue Toyota Corolla that was like 1989 or 90, what, around that period, 4-door Corolla. And I remember it pulling up, and he said, oh, do you want a lift? And I went, yeah, sure. So he gave me a lift, very wealthy billionaire. And we're driving down the road as he's taking me to my house. And I said to him, got to ask you about this car. I know you got more money than God, but, what's the story on this car? There's got to be some kind of story. And he said, when I was over here just starting to make some money, and I was keeping all of my money and I was investing it in real estate, I didn't want to waste it on a fancy car. So I bought a new Toyota Corolla or Camry, whatever the damn thing was. And he said, it starts, it stops, it gets me there, it's clean. He said, so I never bothered replacing it. He said, so I go away, I stick it in the car park. He said, I have one of my agents run in there and start it up every now and then. So whenever it's here, he said, until the thing stops, he said, when it stops, I'll no doubt just leave it on the side of the road and just get an Uber home and then buy a new car in the morning. But he said, this is the car that I've always had. He said, why change? And that was it. He didn't see the need to buy a car to impress you. But at the same party, there were a lot of people that had rented cars to turn up to this party to impress you, and he didn't care. And those were the kind of lessons I learned from the real rich people. They don't care what you think. They are not trying to seek your approval.
Yeah, first off, they don't need it. Second off, if they wanted it, they could buy it several thousand times over, like that. But yep. it goes back, like Warren Buffett still drives around in like a 1996 like Cadillac. Like
same thing. Yeah.
He doesn't need another car. It works. It's comfortable. It gets him from point A to point B. He owns the thing. Why wait? Why put money into something that's not solving a problem, right?
Exactly.
And it's one of the things, like, that's what you and me talked a little bit about this. People come to me for solving some kind of problem. But if John Smith Company doesn't have a branding issue, doesn't have a marketing issue, doesn't have a client issue, doesn't have a systems issue, the fuck would they pay me for? I'm not offering anything to them at that point, Yep. It's gotta be, and you said something earlier, solutions, not sales. And that's the key right there.
Yeah, you've got to focus on solving, not selling.
Yeah, exactly. So you've been all over the place, and there's a few key lessons that I want to make sure that everybody listening can extract from that. And it's not the fact that you moved. It's not the fact that you were just like, all right, maybe it's the place. It's the fact that even at what you claimed to be your lowest point, and I've had those myself. I think all of us as entrepreneurs have, business owners, any caliber, whether you only have two nickels to rub together, or you're competing with Apple these days, you recognized that there was something more that you were meant for, something more that you could do, something that you could change, even when you didn't have anything. You went out for just a couple drinks after you got canned in Hong Kong, after you left London. And the second an opportunity came up, you did what most people fail to do. You seized that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. And now I think we're wired differently. Entrepreneurs, we're wired differently. And as I said to you, we're often led by aggravation. I was aggravated. I wasn't scared. I was aggravated of where I was. A lot of people will go, well, I don't like where I am, but hey, better the devil, you know, I'll settle. Or what the other worst one is, well, better to have a job and look for a job than have no job at all. You know,
yeah.
And entrepreneurs, we're hugely intelligent. We say, fuck this. We jump out of the frying pan straight into the volcano. We don't think, we move, and we have momentum. So I knew I was aggravated. I knew I was pissed off. And it was that aggravation that kept me going, there's got to be something else. So even when the girl turned around and she said, your people are in there, I could have told her to fuck off, you know, and that would have been it. I'd have carried on with my whiskey. She wouldn't have been offended, end of the night, and I wouldn't have known any wiser. But it was that little bit in me that was kind of like, what is she on about? That little cute, where is this going? You know, what does that door do? What is in there? What could come out of that? That's what the entrepreneur does. We want to see what we can get up to. And that was the annoying little kid in me that thankfully I didn't tell her to go away. I did end up getting that job. Terrible job, paid terribly, but was the conduit, cornerstone, and igniter to be where I am now. I've often thought to myself, if I had told her to screw off and not gone in that club and not become the doorman, would I really be sitting here in LA talking to you? Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
You just don't know. But thankfully, I am.
Yeah, no, pleasure to have you on, man. You've done a lot of things that most people can't wrap their head around, right? Like, you're right. Entrepreneurs are wired different. When I've been self-employed, 15 years, 14 years, something like that. I don't think I've had a W-2 job since I was like 18. Right. So it's one of those things that you hit the nail on the head. I fucking hate having a boss. I don't do well with it. I never have. I didn't know that I would be better off on my own. I just knew I didn't want a fucking boss. Right. And that aggravation leads to there's always these choices, right? We always make a choice, seize an opportunity or no. Win, learn, etc. But the curiosity is the leader, right? Curiosity killed the cat is one of the most famous things that anybody knows, but nobody ever finishes that sentence. Satisfaction brought him back is usually how I end that, right? For an entrepreneur, we jump out of that frying pan, like you said, because we're just aggravated with the situation. We're over it. We're like, fuck this, I'm done. We don't need to have that safety net or that backup plan, because one, we can't change it. We're not going to deal with stupid. And two, there's always a way to solve a problem. We just haven't figured out what that solution is yet. So for those of us, those listeners here, the viewers that we've got on here, you're known for making shit happen. What would you recommend to everybody listening and watching to be able to get out of their own way and make shit happen?
Go for stupid. That's a silly little way of looking at it. But one of the worst things is people go for the impossible. You know, I'm going to make the impossible possible. People have said that about me, and I quickly try to correct them. If you say, I'm going to go for the impossible, impossible is a finite word. Impossible means it can't be done. Going for something that can't be done messes with your headset, okay? And your mind is like all over. But if you go for stupid, go for something that's ridiculous, go for something so ridiculous, people are desperate to laugh at you. Like a guy that wakes up one day in Silicon Valley and says, I'm going to fuck with the banking world, and invents PayPal.
Yeah.
and then turns around and says, well, I know fuck all about banking, so I'll launch a space industry. And now he's hired by NASA. Oh, and along the way, I'll reinvent what the car stands for. Oh, and I'll also reinvent batteries, you know?
And
The point-
flamethrowers for some fucking reason.
Go for stupid.
Yeah.
Go for stuff that makes no sense and just see if it can be achieved. Okay. I remember having a chat, and I will name drop. You know, I was with Elon Musk in SpaceX down in Hawthorne, and we were joking about NASA taking the piss out of him. And this was before NASA employed him. And he turned around, and one of the guys was saying, you know, how do you feel every time NASA releases a tweet and basically takes the piss out of you? And he just turned around without any anger, without any grit, with any malice. He just turned around and he went, they'll always laugh at you before they applaud.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing he came up with. It was like, boom. So you've got to go for something ridiculous. If you try to quantify, if you try to calculate, if you try to vision board this shit, it ain't going to happen. Okay. If you try to analyze it, you'll just paralyze yourself and you're fucked. So just try going for it. Try something you've never done before. Now, teach yourself how to do this by training your mind. And how you train your mind is, if you're going to the mall, go a different route. Drive a different way to that mall. Sounds stupid, but get your mind to try to investigate different possibilities. When you go to a restaurant, and the best ones for this are sushi restaurants and Japanese restaurants, go to the restaurant and pick something on the appetizer menu that you have not a clue what it is. Okay. Train your mind at a small expense to try something different. If you eat it and it's the most vile thing that's ever entered your mouth, you're now educated. You now know for a fact that's fucking horrible. Okay. Another way to do it is radio stations. You know, we all have these internet radio stations now. I use one here and I'll look it up. What's it called? It's called My Tuner. I will literally pick a radio station from a different part of the world and listen to an hour of that radio station. I could end up on a politics of like Afghanistan. The other month I was listening to, and this is 2:00 in the afternoon, I was listening to EDM. Okay. Yeah. I was listening to Norwegian EDM. Now, bearing in mind, for me, it's 2:00 in the afternoon, which for those guys, it's like 4 a.m. in the morning, and they are all caked out of their skull. And I listened to an hour of EDM. Now, because I did that, I am qualified and educated to say it's the worst fucking music you can ever hear in your life, because I tried something different. Yeah. So because my mind is so used to trying things that are not normal, when something pops his head up that could potentially be an opportunity, I go, well, I'm so used to not doing the normal. That sounds like normal for me. And so you've got to train yourself to receive these opportunities by being receptive in the first place.
I love it. I love it. I also want to add to something. Go for stupid. I love that term, but it can also be a good way to get yourself out of some crummy situations. In an earlier episode, I talked about, I think, the first big chargeback fraud case against us. Client came in, had like, I don't know, it was like $70,000 worth of shit that they charged back. It was like 6 or 9 months of invoices that they claimed fraud on. We have their IP address. Fuck, I've got photos with the dude and his credit card and contract signing, right? We ultimately won with filing a judgment and coming after him. But I had like 3 days to figure out how to come up with $70,000, right? Because that hit at like a Wednesday night, and we're like, fuck, right? Like first year of the company. So 70 grand going out of your account, I don't care how much money you have, on a Wednesday night is a big fucking hit.
Yeah.
And we weren't at a place where it was, we'll just roll it. It was, all right, now we've got a checking account that's fucked. We've got a processor account that's fucked. We still have payroll and overhead. What do we do? And I consciously remember that the person that I was a couple years before that, I would have just packed it up and I'd been like, well, tried, fucked it up, bye, closed the doors. But the me that was in that scenario at the time, like that happened. And I'm like, all right, well, how do we make 100 grand in 3 days? And lo and behold, because I went for something ridiculous, it was just shy. I think it was just shy or just over 100,000 at like end of day 2, somewhere in the middle of the night. We made up everything we lost and then like 30% more because we just fucking went for it. We were just like, well, if we fuck it up, we're right here where we are now. So
Yep, exactly.
it's also a little relieving to give yourself permission to just fucking do it. Right?
Yeah, it is. What you've got to realize is that every time you do anything, it's shit. You know, as entrepreneurs, you're not perfectionists, you're not brilliant, you're not amazing until you failed a lot during the way and you become educated on how it should be done. So when you go into the planet and you go into every venture and you go into every opportunity, knowing that the first time I do anything, it's going to be shit, it gives you permission to just go for it and not worry. So many people try to start a business that's seamlessly perfect when perfect doesn't really actually work.
Oh no, I've fallen on my face so many fucking times I can't even remember. And it's one of those things that I talk about quite a bit, not only on this show, but during consults and coaching, is you're gonna fuck up. You're gonna fuck up hard. And I kind of take it to a next level because everybody's like, well, why do you like, I've got 18 pieces of software coming out this year. I didn't know dick about software 2 years ago, right? Like I fell into it because I was just like, well, okay, I got a problem. Let's see if we can fix it. We fixed it. Now we fix it for other people. But we've got so many coming out and people ask, well, why are you doing that when you've got so many other things going on? I'm like, because why not? One of two things is going to happen. It's either going to be fucking awesome or I'm going to fail and learn something from it, but it's not going to be a small fail. It's going to fail so hard that there's no remnants of it coming back. Those are the only two options. It either wins or it's a 747 hit in Texas, right? So the next thing I want to talk about briefly, you went from London, Hong Kong, to a few other places, then Long Beach, then LA, right?
Palm Beach.
Yeah,
Long Beach is slightly different to Palm Beach.
Just a little bit. So one thing that a lot of people have a struggle with, especially entrepreneurs and small business owners just getting started, definitely now with 2020 just shitting on everybody's travel plans. How did you continue to run that business without having to have a phone number, an email, without having to continuously do traditional style marketing? How did you build your brand while traveling to the point where it didn't matter where you were the guy?
So the phone, I had a phone, but I just never had a website with a phone number and an email.
Yeah.
So to get hold of me, you had to know a client that I had worked with. Now, if you work with a billionaire, billionaires tend to know billionaires. So the guy that was contacting me, the conversation would always be the kind of, hey, I was speaking with Kevin and Kevin told me you did this. I never had to sell myself. I never had to prove myself. Once you get one billionaire client, then they become your advertising. You could literally answer every single phone call saying, hey, I'm glad Kevin told good things about me. Now, what can I do for you? I never had to say what I was good at, what I could do, never had to go through any of that. So I always focused on the client. I never focused on me. I would always turn up in a black t-shirt on a motorcycle. I've had a bike in every single country I've ever lived in, and I'd always turn up with a helmet in my hand. I'd go, right, what's your problem? What do you need done? And they'll be like, oh, I want to meet so-and-so. And I'll be like, well, that sounds pretty lame. Instead of meeting them, why don't we do this? And they'll be like, fuck yeah. And I'll be like, great. wire me $250,000, I'll make it happen. Now, I agree. At the beginning stages, that was hard to get someone to trust you. But once you start getting into that snowball effect, and they've got two billionaires saying that you're good, and that billionaire knows that whatever you did for them must have also cost $250,000. Everyone's wiring like nuts. I remember sending a client an invoice once, and it was for 50K, okay? And he sent us $500,000. He'd got the decimal point wrong on the wire to us and sent us $500,000. And my wife was pissed off. Pissed off. Why? Because we contacted the guy and we went, dude, you kind of sent us a little bit more than what we were asking for. And he turned around, he said, keep it and we'll just use that as a retainer and we'll work it down. Whatever I need, I've already prepaid. Now, this upset my wife because she now had an accounting nightmare on her hands. I'm like, girl, I've just got you $500,000.
What are you mad about?
She's like, oh, I've got to do this. And he'd be like, hey, Steve, I need a plane. How much is the plane? 20. Okay, Claire, take the 20. And she'd have to do it. And it was so annoying to her. And I can understand it now, but it was the kind of thing that you really just had to focus on the client. What problem can I solve? I've always said when I do speeches on stages and when I do speaking gigs, one of my things has been in the middle of the night at 2:00 when you've got a shit headache and you go to the cabinet and you pull the tablets out to get rid of the headache. Do you care about the packaging? You don't.
No.
You care that that headache tablet can do the job. You don't give a fuck what the thing looks like. But if you're going to buy your girlfriend a ring or a piece of jewelry, that shit better come in a Tiffany box. It better come in a Cartier box because it needs all the trimmings to build up the excitement of what it actually is. The simple fact is, when you solve a situation, you don't have to brand because you're solving someone's problem. And if you can solve someone's problem, they tell other people. If you
I do want to interrupt you for 1 second so that everybody hears that. And I'm gonna add to it really quick. If you solve a problem, you don't have to do branding. I'm gonna throw a little wrench in that statement. That is branding. By solving that problem, that is the branding.
All right, then let's argue. All right. What is branding? Let's play the game, me and you, toe to toe. What is branding? You tell me what you think it is.
As there's different definitions, but the most typical one is a brand that's associated with some kind of reputation of success or good, whether that be Nike for just do it because they're considered the athletic company that just does it. It'd be Cartier or Tiffany for having a reputation of excellence and beauty. That's the brand. So for you, your brand.
Who creates that?
Well, in many cases, a marketing company. But the reason
argument. That's where I'm going to argue with you. Branding, as far as I'm concerned, branding is what someone says about you when you've left the room. What you just mentioned, and you can go back and listen to this, you said that they had the reputation. Reputations come when other people are talking about you. You could try and position yourself. You like Nike's Just Do It is so good because there's no way you can fuck up that tagline.
I don't disagree with you, but what I'm saying is your reputation, when as good, for instance, yourself, right? Before we got on this call, 3 seconds of looking at any information about you, your brand is you're the dude to get shit done for the elite. If you want something done, that's you. Whether that was a branding campaign or not, that is your brand.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It's my brand because my reputation is spoken about by other people.
Yes.
We're both correct. We're both correct. But anyone listening to this who is sitting at home that's going to focus on that branding for the night, stop. Focus on the client's reaction to what problem you solve and let the client's response brand who you are.
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's no better new business you can get than when from a ranting and raving fan refers somebody to you. They're already pre-sold. It doesn't matter what you sell.
Every time.
Yeah. And especially, I mean, your testimony in and of itself. One billionaire client turned into you living in what, 6 countries over the timeline of this career, going from having whiskey outside of a bar that you just got terminated at down the road to John Legend, not Sir Elton John's party. And so it speaks for itself. Now,
I've got about 5 minutes, and I've got to jump on another Zoom call. Right?
Yeah, let's wrap up here really quick. But I want to leave everybody with a few things before we have our outro. How do you recommend that somebody get their mind right to focus on solving, not selling?
Yeah, you just got to open up your eyes. People look at the product they've got and they internalize it too much. They look at it and they go, oh, this is beautiful. This is brilliant. This is exceptional. Put yourself as the customer, develop an avatar of the person that's receiving your product and ask the question, what problem does this solve? Like, you are never going to sell headache tablets to someone that doesn't have a headache. But if someone's short and you can give them lift inner soles to make them slightly taller, now you've solved a short person's problem. If you've got someone that's got a great product, but no systems, be the systems guy, solve that problem. So look at what solution you are and then offer that out. Offer the solution, don't offer the product. Hey, do you want to be taller? Do you want to be slimmer? Do you want your business to flow? Do you want an influx of leads? Do you want... Answer the problem and provide the solution, not a product.
Exactly. So we always do a short but sweet wrap-up routine here. You just did part 1 of it. Part 2 of it is, they're called the 3 favors, right? Part 2 of it, the second favor, is just tell us a little bit about what you do to unwind after a day of traveling with Sir Elton John or Elon Musk. Just tell us a little bit about kind of how your routine has been to wind down, because that's one of every entrepreneur's biggest problems is taking themselves out of the company.
Yeah, you've got to reflect. You've got to reflect and question. Now, if I'm traveling on the road and I'm flying around the planet and I'm with hobnobbing around, I will literally go to a different hotel, because 9 times out of 10, the hotel I'm at is usually where the entourage or the client is. I'll go to a different place, get an old fashioned and sit at the edge of the bar on my own and just reflect in the day, reflect where I am, and be grateful that a bricklayer from London is now here with blah, 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 reflect, analyze, appreciate, question. If I'm not doing that kind of traveling, like tonight, I've got another appointment in a few minutes. At the end of all of that, I'll go inside, I'll make myself a cup of tea, and I'll sit down with my wife and give her a little squeeze and just reflect that I'm fortunate enough to be able to do the things I do, give the life I give to my family, and appreciate it. So always reflect and appreciate at the end of every single day.
I love it. Last but not least, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, if they want you to come speak, if they want to get to know a little bit more about your history, purchase a copy of your book, where can they find you?
Well, I'm easier to get than COVID. You can find me on stevedsims.com. There's only 1 M in Sims, and it's Steve D for dog, Sims.com. And I'm Steve D Sims everywhere, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. I've got an Entrepreneur's Advantage with Steve Sims. That's my free Facebook group. But you'll find out about the books and my speakeasies and everything on stevedsims.com.
Awesome. Everybody, make sure you go check it out. If you have any interest in getting a copy of his book, learning more about Steve, connecting with him personally, or potentially hiring him, make sure you go to stevedsims.com. This was another episode of The Inbound Secret. I'll see y'all next time.
This is the Inbound Secret. Secret.
My name is Bryce, and I'm your host for The Inbound Secret, where we're talking with top performers and health experts and sales badasses alike about their strategies to optimize their well-being and performance. Once again, this is The Inbound Secret, and let's get rocking and rolling.
This is the inbound. This is the inbound. This is the inbound. The inbound. This is the inbound secret.